My name is Estelle Barrington, and I'm 34 years old. I'm the CEO and founder of Vector Forge, a fast growing supply chain technology company based in Boston. I live in the suburbs with my husband Milo, a talented trauma surgeon, and our energetic 6-year-old son Brian. From the outside, we probably look like one of those picture perfect families in a glossy brochure. Milo's always in a crisp shirt. Brian is the kid with the messy hair and the bright blue eyes, asking a million questions about how robots work. And I'm the woman who somehow juggles investor calls, product roadmaps, and bedtime stories about spaceships. But there's something most people don't know. Underneath the polished LinkedIn profile and the Christmas card smiles, there's a wound in me that never really healed, a quiet ache that shows up whenever I see other families laughing together at airports or crowding around a birthday cake. Because once upon a time, I had a complete family too, a father, a mother, and a younger brother. And 3 months ago, at my younger brother's engagement party, I finally cut ties with them. To explain how everything fell apart that night, I have to go back to the moment this whole mess began, the evening I received the invitation. It was a Sunday. I remember because the Patriots were playing the Chiefs, and Milo had surrendered the TV to me so I could watch the game with Brian in our entertainment room. Brian didn't really care about football, but he loved the snacks. Mom, if they run really fast, do they get extra points? He asked, cheeks puffed out with popcorn. Sadly, no, I laughed. If that were the rule, I'd be a professional athlete by now. He giggled, and for a second, life felt simple. Then my phone buzzed on the coffee table. I glanced down. Aiden. My thumb hovered over the screen. We hadn't really talked in years. Just obligatory texts on holidays, the occasional forwarded meme, and the sort of stiff, careful small talk you have with people who share your blood, but not your life. I let it ring twice, 3 times. Then I exhaled slowly and pressed accept. Hello? My voice came out flatter than I intended. Estelle! Aiden's voice crackled through, unusually bright. Hey, I've got big news. There was a time when big news from my little brother would have made me drop everything, eager to celebrate with him. Now all I felt was a tightness in my chest. What's going on? I asked. I'm getting engaged, he said, practically bursting. We're having an engagement party next month. I'm calling to invite you and your family. For a second, the room seemed to tilt. I stared at the paused football players frozen mid-tackle on the TV screen. When and where? I asked, carefully neutral. The 15th of next month at Ocean View Resort, he replied. It's right on the coast. I'll text you the time and details, but please make sure you're there on time, okay? There was this tiny pause, as if he was afraid I'd say no, or as if he was already bracing himself for disappointment. I swallowed. I'll arrange it, I said. We exchanged a few more polite words. Nothing about how I'd been or how work was, nothing about the years of distance between us, then hung up. As soon as the call ended, I let the phone drop to the cushion beside me. Everything okay? Milo's voice floated in from the doorway. I turned. He was leaning against the frame, still in scrubs, stethoscope looped around his neck, watching me with that quiet, steady attention I'd come to depend on. That was Aiden, I said. He's getting engaged. There's a party next month. Milo stepped into the room and sat beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. That's good news, right? He asked gently. I let out a humorless laugh. Good for him. For me? I shook my head. You know how it is at family events. I'm still the embarrassment, the one who left, who didn't follow the script. The memories came back sharp. My father's disappointed sighs, my mother's cold silence when I chose a startup over a stable job, the backhanded comments at reunions. Milo didn't interrupt. He knew this script too well. After Brian went to bed, we moved to the kitchen. The house was quiet, the only sound the faint hum of the fridge. Milo poured me a glass of red wine and pushed it toward me, then rested his elbows on the island. Tell me what's really going on in your head, he said. I don't want to go, I admitted. Every time I show up, they look at me like I'm a stain on the tablecloth. And now Aiden's tying himself to some wealthy family. You know how Mom and Dad get around important people? I'm just not in the mood to be their punching bag again. Milo studied me for a long moment, his dark eyes soft but firm. Estelle, if you don't go, they'll turn that into another weapon against you. She didn't even show up for her brother's engagement. You know they will. I clenched my jaw. He was right, and I hated that he was right. I'm tired of being the villain in their story, I whispered. I know, he said quietly, but you're not the villain. And Aiden, he's still your brother. This might be the last chance to see whether there's anything left worth saving. I stared down at the wine, watching the way the light caught the surface. And if there isn't? Then at least you'll know you tried, Milo said. Sometimes, to really move forward, you have to walk straight through the past once more. His words lodged in my chest like a thorn and a balm at the same time. I'll think about it, I murmured. He stepped closer, cupped my cheek with his hand, and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. But if we go, we walk in there as us, not the version of you they think they own. 1 month later, we were driving along the coast toward Ocean View Resort. Brian was in the back seat, swinging his feet and humming, dressed in a tiny gray suit he'd insisted on wearing once he heard there'd be fancy food. Milo, in a navy suit and silver tie, kept one hand on the wheel and one resting on my thigh, his thumb drawing slow circles there whenever he felt me tense. I smoothed the skirt of my emerald dress and tried to steady my breathing. I'd chosen it deliberately, simple but striking. I refused to walk into that place looking like someone begging for approval. Mom, Brian's small voice piped up, are Grandma and Grandpa nice? The question hit me harder than I expected. I forced a smile, turning to meet his eyes in the rearview mirror. They're family, I said. You haven't seen them much, but yes, they're your grandparents. Oh, they're the people who never come to my birthdays, right? He asked, without malice, just curiosity. My throat tightened. Milo's hand pressed down gently on my leg, grounding me. That's right, I said softly, but we'll see them today. As the resort came into view, white buildings set against an endless stretch of ocean, I felt that familiar mix of dread and stubborn pride. If my parents wanted to see me as the girl who'd failed them, that was their problem. I knew exactly who I was now. Vector Forge wasn't just some little project. We'd built cutting-edge, AI-driven supply chain software that half the region's distributors were eyeing. There was a $7.2 million contract on my desk, waiting for final signatures. The irony, as I was about to find out, was almost poetic. We arrived late enough that the party was already in full swing. Laughter and clinking glasses spilled out from the main hall, and the soft echo of a string quartet floated through the air. As we stepped inside, I could feel eyes turning toward us. Is that Estelle? Someone whispered. I thought she cut contact years ago. I heard she's difficult, another voice murmured. Brian's small hand clamped around mine. I squeezed back, plastering on a calm smile. It's okay, buddy, I whispered. Mom's right here. We walked toward the bar area where I spotted my parents talking with a group of expensively dressed guests. My father, Nolan Barrington, looked older than I remembered, but his posture was still rigid, his expression stern. My mother, Kinsley, was as elegant and distant as ever, a chilled glass of champagne, perfectly balanced between two manicured fingers. Ready? Milo murmured. No, I said, but let's go anyway. We approached. Dad, Mom, I greeted them, forcing my voice to stay steady. It's been a while. Nolan gave me a cursory glance, his mouth tightening. Estelle, he said, as if my name were something he'd found stuck to his shoe. Kinsley's eyes flicked over Milo and Brian, then back to me. Hello, Milo. Hello, Brian. You've grown, she said to our son with a thin smile. Brian just pressed closer to my side. Before the silence could stretch painfully long, Aiden appeared, beaming in a tailored tuxedo. Estelle! You made it, he exclaimed, pulling me into a hug that felt both familiar and foreign. I'm really glad you're here. Congratulations, I said, patting his shoulder. You look good, kid. He grinned, then turned to wave someone over. Estelle, I want you to meet Amelia's father, Thomas Whitmore, chairman of Whitmore Group. Thomas, this is my older sister, Estelle. I turned, and my heart gave the smallest jolt of recognition at the name Whitmore. Thomas was in his early 60s, tall, with a practiced, confident smile. The Whitmore Group was a major distribution company in the Northeast. For the last 6 months, their COO had been negotiating with Vector Forge, my company, on that $7.2 million contract. Of course, Thomas had no idea that the woman standing in front of him in an emerald dress was the CEO he'd been indirectly talking about in boardrooms. He looked me up and down, his gaze openly assessing. Then, with a smirk loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, he said, So this is the other one I've heard so much about. My stomach dropped. Nolan shifted uncomfortably. Kinsley looked away. Aiden pretended not to notice. Thomas went on, chuckling. Your parents always talked about the golden child and the difficult one. I'd honestly expected the difficult one to stay home, too embarrassed to show up tonight. Heat flooded my face, but I kept my expression neutral. Years of investor meetings hadn't been for nothing. "It's nice to meet you, Mr. Whitmore," I said evenly. "I've heard a lot about the Whitmore Group." He raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? And what exactly do you do, Estelle?" "I work in supply chain technology," I replied lightly. "Our paths probably cross more than you realize." He snorted, already disinterested. "Everyone works in technology these days," he said, making air quotes. "Well, enjoy the party." The words stung, but what hurt more was the way my parents said nothing. No defense, no correction, just silence. I swallowed down the hurt and turned away. "We should check in about our seating," I told Milo. "Then we can breathe." At the reception desk, a young woman in a black and white resort uniform smiled at us. "Good evening. May I have your name?" "Barrington family," I said. "Estelle Barrington, Milo Barrington, and Brian Barrington. I'm the groom's older sister." She typed quickly, scanning the screen. Then her smile faltered. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't see your names on the main guest list." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. The sounds of the party seemed to recede, replaced by a dull roaring in my ears. "Could you double-check?" I asked, keeping my voice as calm as I could. "I'm definitely supposed to be here." She scrolled again, then nodded slowly. "You're on the supplementary list," she said, her tone apologetic. "If you'll follow me, I'll show you to your seats. You're near the gift display area." Near the gifts, not near the family, not near the stage. Behind me, I felt Milo go very still. Brian tugged on my sleeve. "Mom, why are we sitting so far away?" he asked, innocent eyes wide. I forced a smile that felt like glass cracking. "Maybe they just ran out of space in the main area," I said softly. "Come on, sweetheart, let's see." We followed the staff member through the glittering hall, past round tables draped in white linen, past relatives laughing together, past a table labeled "Family of the Groom" in elegant script. She stopped finally at a lonely corner near the gift table, where 3 plain chairs sat awkwardly by themselves. No floral arrangements, no name cards, no other guests. Just us, out of the way, invisible. Something inside me went very, very quiet. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't an oversight. This was deliberate. Milo's jaw flexed. Brian looked around, confused. And in that silent, humiliating moment, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. Whatever was about to happen tonight, I was not going to let them bury me in a corner like a piece of furniture ever again. For a few long seconds, I just stood there, staring at the 3 chairs by the gift table. The rest of the hall looked like something out of a wedding magazine. Round tables draped in white linen, centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus, flickering candles in glass cylinders. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the air. Waiters in black vests moved gracefully between tables pouring champagne. And then there was our place. 3 lonely chairs, pushed against a wall next to a mountain of wrapped presents. No table, no flowers, no name cards. Just a convenient corner where we wouldn't be seen or heard. "Is this it?" Milo asked quietly, his voice low enough that only I could hear. The staff member flushed with embarrassment. I'm really sorry, ma'am. This is what's on the seating chart." Brian squinted at the heap of gifts. "Are we guarding the presents?" he asked, genuinely puzzled. "Like security?" The words lodged in my heart like a shard of glass. Security. That's how they saw us. Something functional. Something you tuck away. I crouched down to his level, forcing my lips into a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Something like that, buddy," I said, tucking a strand of hair behind his ear. "Why don't you sit for a bit? I'll go ask a question, okay?" He nodded, accepting it without suspicion. Because he trusted me. Because he believed I wouldn't put him somewhere he didn't belong. Milo caught my hand as I straightened. His grip was firm, a quiet plea. "Estelle," he murmured, "we don't have to stay. We can leave right now." For a moment, the idea was tempting. Walk out, go home, order pizza, watch a movie, pretend none of this had happened. But then I imagined my parents' voices later. "She stormed off. She ruined his engagement. She's always so dramatic." I swallowed down the bitterness. "No," I said, my voice more steady than I felt. "Not yet. Let me just get some answers." I headed back towards the reception desk, feeling the prickle of eyes on my back. The string quartet played something soft and elegant, completely at odds with the roaring in my head. The young woman at the desk looked up, nervousness crossing her features when she recognized me. "Ma'am, is there a problem with—" "I just want to speak with whoever's in charge of seating," I said, keeping my tone level. "There must be some kind of mistake." As she nodded and reached for the phone, I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy, deliberate. The kind of footsteps that announce themselves. "Estelle!" My father's voice snapped, low and warning. What do you think you're doing? I turned to see Nolan and Kinsley approaching, with Thomas Whitmore at their side. My father's face was tight, eyes cold. My mother's jaw was set, lips pressed thin. Thomas wore that same smug expression he'd had at the bar. I'm asking about our seating, I replied, each word carefully measured. I saw where you put us. It's been handled, Nolan said. You're making a scene on your brother's special night. Again. Making a scene? I repeated, incredulous. I'm asking why my husband, my 6-year-old son, and I are tucked away by the gift table like we're part of the staff. I'm Aiden's sister. You're his sister, my mother said sharply, and that's exactly why we gave you a place, just not in the middle of things. The young receptionist glanced between us, visibly uncomfortable. Nolan shot her a look that clearly meant you may go now. She faded into the background. Why not in the middle of things? I pressed, feeling my pulse pound in my ears. Why aren't we with family? My father's eyes hardened. He stepped closer, voice dropping to a hiss. Because if you walk in there and sit with the important guests, you will embarrass us. For a second, I honestly thought I'd misheard him. Embarrass you? I repeated slowly. You know what this event is, he continued. There are influential people here. CEOs, board members, politicians. It's not the place for your drama, Estelle. We can't risk you saying something or picking a fight. I stared at him, a strange numbness washing over me. It wasn't just the words. It was the fact that he said them so easily. Like this was a simple, rational explanation. My mother stepped in, voice icy. All we're asking is that you sit where you're placed, keep your head down, and don't draw attention to yourself. Pretend you're not here, and we can all enjoy the evening. Pretend you're not here. The phrase echoed against years of smaller cuts. Maybe don't come to the company dinner. It's more Aiden's crowd. Let's not mention your startup. People won't understand. Can't you just be normal for once? Before I could answer, Thomas let out a derisive laugh. Honestly, I don't see what the fuss is about, he said, loud enough for a few nearby guests to hear. She should be grateful she was invited at all. This is a celebration for successful people, not whatever she is. Something inside me snapped. I looked at Thomas, then at my parents, at the polished marble floor, at the expensive floral arrangements, at the doorway leading back to the corner where my little boy sat, wondering why his grandparents had hidden him. I realized, with a strange clarity, that I'd spent years twisting myself into knots to prove something to these people, to make them proud, to make them see me. I'd built a company from scratch, hired over 100 employees, negotiated with Fortune 500s. And still, in their eyes, I was the disappointment, the liability, the one they needed to hide. I was so tired. I took a step back, my expression smoothing into something calm enough that it scared even me. Thank you, I said quietly. My mother frowned. For what? For finally saying it out loud, I replied. At least now we're not pretending. I turned and walked away, feeling their eyes burning into my back. I half expected Nolan to call me back, or Kinsley to grab my arm and hiss, "Don't you dare walk away from me." But they didn't. They just let me go. When I returned to the corner, Milo was kneeling in front of Brian, explaining something about having a special view of the whole party in a voice that sounded a little too bright. Milo looked up as I approached. So? He asked softly. I sat down slowly, the air around me suddenly feeling thinner. They put us here on purpose, I said, because they think I'll embarrass them. Milo's jaw clenched. For a moment I thought he might march straight back there and say something that would get us all kicked out. Part of me wanted him to. Instead, I reached for his hand. Don't, I said, not yet. Brian leaned toward me, eyes wide. Mom, did I do something wrong? He asked. Oh, that hurt more than anything Nolan had said. I pulled him into my arms, pressing a kiss to his hair. You did nothing wrong, I whispered fiercely. You are perfect, you hear me? This isn't about you. This is about grown-ups who don't know how to act. He nodded slowly, still confused, but soothed by my certainty. Milo sat beside me, his thigh pressed against mine, his voice low. Say the word, and we're gone, he murmured. We don't need any of this. You don't owe them anything. I stared at the glimmering hall in front of us, at the relatives laughing together, at my brother moving from table to table with an easy smile, oblivious to the fact that his sister and her family had been quarantined. And then an idea slid into my mind, cold and precise. I didn't owe my parents anything, but I owed myself something. I owed this little boy in my arms a mother who didn't let people treat her like she was worthless. I gently released Brian and reached for my clutch. My fingers trembled slightly as I unzipped it and pulled out my phone. Estelle? Milo asked, watching me. What are you doing? I scrolled through my contacts until I reached a familiar name. Michael Reed, Vector Forge's chief operating officer, the man who'd been by my side from the first seed money round to the last product launch, the man currently shepherding a $7.2 million contract with Whitmore Group toward the finish line. Behind Michael's name in my mind, another one floated up. Eleanor Wright, the Whitmore Group COO who had worked closely with our team and respected us professionally. They had no idea I was standing in the same room as their chairman, and he had no idea who I really was. I thought of Thomas's voice. This is a party for successful people, not whatever she is. I exhaled slowly, feeling everything inside me settle. No more, I said quietly, more to myself than to Milo. No more letting them decide my worth. I looked at my husband. His eyes searched mine, and whatever he saw there made him stop questioning. He just nodded, a tiny supportive tilt of his head. What are you going to do? He asked. I unlocked my phone and opened Michael's contact. The screen seemed to glow a little brighter in the dim corner. I'm going to stop doing business with people who think I belong by the gift table, I said. Then I pressed call. The phone rang once, twice. With each chime, I felt something old and heavy inside me loosen, like a chain slipping from around my throat. On the third ring, Michael picked up. Estelle, everything okay? He asked. I took a breath, steady and clear, my eyes fixed on the glittering center of the hall, where my family had tried to pretend I didn't exist. Hey, Michael, I said. We need to talk about the Whitmore contract. The moment Michael answered, something inside me snapped into place, like a lock turning after years of being jammed. Estelle, everything okay? His voice was alert, concerned. Normally, I would have apologized for interrupting his evening, but not tonight. I looked at Milo, at Brian sitting quietly with his small legs dangling from the chair, at the distant crowd pretending we weren't even there. And then I said the words that would change everything. Michael, prepare paperwork to cancel the Whitmore Group contract. There was a sharp inhale on the other end. Cancel? Estelle, this contract is worth $7.2 million. We're 3 days from final signatures. I know, I replied, keeping my voice level, but I won't work with people who treat me like a problem to hide. I'm making this call as CEO, effective immediately. Michael hesitated. Estelle, can I ask what happened? I didn't go into the sordid details, the gift table, the humiliation, the insults, but I gave him just enough. Their chairman just made it very clear he thinks I'm beneath him, that my family is beneath him. I won't tolerate it. Not personally, not professionally. There was a long silence. Then Michael exhaled softly. All right, I'll inform Eleanor and draft the termination papers tonight. She's not going to be happy. Neither am I said quietly. But this is the right decision. As I ended the call, I felt a strange, rising sensation, somewhere between relief and fury, like I had finally stopped apologizing for taking up space. I slipped my phone back into my clutch and stood. Milo rose with me instantly. What now? He asked, his voice low. I smoothed my dress, my hands no longer trembling. Now, I said, we stop sitting where we're told. I reached for Brian's hand, and he jumped off his chair obediently. Milo fixed his tie with a subtle nod. And as a family, the three of us stepped away from the forgotten corner and walked straight toward the center of the hall. It was like someone pressed slow motion on the whole room. Heads turned, conversations paused. A few wine glasses froze midair. The Barringtons weren't supposed to be seen. But we walked through the crowd with the kind of calm, deliberate confidence that makes people instinctively step aside, even when they think they're above you. I felt every stare, every whisper, but for the first time in a long time, none of it mattered. We were almost halfway to the main circle of guests when a familiar figure stepped into our path. Thomas Whitmore. Where do you think you're going? He demanded, blocking our way. I thought you were already assigned seating. His voice carried, drawing more attention. A small cluster of guests drifted closer, sensing drama. I looked him dead in the eyes. That's right. You placed me in a remote corner next to the gift table like I was hired help, but I'm the groom's older sister, and I'll stand wherever I damn well choose. A hush rippled through the crowd. Thomas's face twisted. If you don't return to your seat, he hissed, I'll call security. Something inside me laughed, not out loud, but deep in my bones. This man had no idea how badly he'd miscalculated. I tilted my head. Go ahead. I'd love to see the headlines when security removes the groom's sister and her 6-year-old son from his engagement party. A few nearby guests exchanged stunned glances. Thomas hesitated. I could see the calculation flickering behind his eyes. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not publicly. Before he could respond, another familiar voice joined us. Estelle, what's happening? Aiden had spotted us. He hurried over, Amelia by his side. Both looked confused and tense. Thomas forced a smile. Ah, just a misunderstanding, he said too quickly. Your sister seems confused about her seating. A faint ripple of discomfort moved through the room. I locked eyes with my brother. Aiden, I said softly, do you know where you sat my family tonight? His eyes darted away, his throat bobbed. I'm not sure. Amelia and I weren't involved in... My voice sharpened. We were placed next to the gift table. Aiden's expression crumpled. Amelia's eyes flew wide. The gift table? No, that can't be right. I asked for a separate table because I thought you wanted privacy with Milo and Brian. I believed her instantly. Her confusion wasn't fake. She spun toward a nearby staff member. Could we speak with whoever arranged the seating? Right now. The hall manager, a middle-aged woman with a tight bun and a clipboard, hurried over. She scanned the group nervously. Ma'am, Amelia said, did you place Estelle Barrington's family near the gift table? The manager swallowed hard. Yes, but that placement was requested. Requested by who? Amelia pressed. The manager hesitated, clearly torn. Nolan and Kinsley approached, panic flickering behind their masks of composure. But the manager had already spoken. By Mr. Barrington, she said softly. Mrs. Barrington. And Mr. Whitmore. The room went still. You could have heard a champagne bubble pop. Amelia whipped toward her father. Dad, she whispered, tell me she's lying. Thomas's jaw clenched. It was necessary, he snapped. This party is important. We can't risk... Risk what? Amelia demanded. Humiliating her? My mother's voice sliced in, sharp and defensive. This is for the good of the party, Amelia. Estelle doesn't fit with this crowd. She attracts attention. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Not because the words hurt, but because they didn't. They didn't surprise me. They didn't shock me. They didn't confuse me. They just confirmed everything I had learned to stop expecting from them. Before anyone else could speak, another voice cut through the tension. A deep, authoritative voice. Excuse me, are you Estelle Barrington? We turned. A tall, silver-haired man in a bespoke Armani suit stepped into the circle. He looked familiar, but it took me a second to place him. Then it clicked. Bob Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Logistics, one of the largest distributors in the Northeast, a competitor of Whitmore Group. Thomas visibly paled. Yes, I answered. I am. Bob's eyes lit up in recognition. From Vector Forge, correct? We've been following your software's progress. I didn't realize you were related to the Groom. The crowd murmured. Thomas froze. Aiden blinked rapidly. Vector, what? Oh, he truly had no idea. I smiled faintly. Yes, I'm the CEO and founder. The whispering exploded. CEO? She built that company? Did Thomas seriously call her a failure? What is wrong with that family? Thomas sputtered, turning ghost pale. She's... what? I faced him fully. You asked earlier what I do, I said softly. I build things you can't pronounce. My company is the one you've been negotiating a $7.2 million contract with. The hall gasped. Aiden staggered back a step. My mother's face drained of color. My father blinked as if someone had slapped him. Then Thomas found his voice. You're lying, he spat. You're nothing but a... Call Eleanor Wright, I said, cutting him off cleanly. Right now. Ask her who signed the last proposal. Ask her who leads every technical meeting. His fingers fumbled with his phone. His hands shook as he dialed. We all watched. Eleanor, yes, quick question. Who is the CEO of Vector Forge? Yes, I know it's late, but... Then he froze. Completely. Finally, he turned toward me, face chalk white. Eleanor says it's you. I raised an eyebrow. I believe I mentioned that. Thomas swallowed. Hard. Look, Estelle, I hope we can separate personal misunderstandings from business. We truly value Vector Forge's technology. Let's not let emotions... That won't be a problem, I interrupted. The contract is already canceled. He staggered. Canceled? I nodded. As of 10 minutes ago. Gasps, whispers, knees weakening, faces draining. Aiden stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Amelia covered her mouth, horrified not at me, but at her father. My mother finally spoke, voice trembling. Estelle, you didn't have to go this far. I looked at her with the strange, quiet sadness. No, I said. You went this far. I simply stopped walking behind you. Every ounce of humiliation, every whispered insult, every dismissal, I let it all fall away like dead weight. I turned to Milo, who was watching me with quiet pride. Let's get our things, I said softly. I turned back to my family only once. I'm done letting you hide me, I said. I'm done letting you define me. And I'm done pretending this is a family. Then I walked away with my husband and son. And nobody, not even Thomas Whitmore with all his bluster, tried to stop me. The moment we turned to leave, a ripple went through the room, like the whole hall had suddenly remembered how to breathe after holding in one giant gasp. Milo wrapped an arm protectively around me. Brian clung to my hand, sensing the tension, even if he didn't fully understand it. But behind us, chaos ignited. Estelle, wait! Aiden's voice cracked, thin and desperate, and despite everything, it made me stop. I turned slowly. My brother pushed through the small crowd, Amelia right behind him. His face was pale, eyes frantic, as if he couldn't decide whether to hug me or fall apart. Estelle, he breathed, please, don't go like this. His words hit me with a strange, dull ache, because that tone, that uncertainty, belonged to the boy he used to be. The one who'd asked me to stay up late helping him study. The one who used to hide behind me when our parents were angry. The one who once called me his hero. Not the man who'd let me be humiliated tonight. And yet, something in me softened, just a little. Aiden, I said quietly, did you know about the seating? His jaw tightened, his eyes flickered, and that was all the answer I needed. I nodded slowly, so you knew. Estelle, He swallowed, looking around as if the room itself might swallow him whole. I didn't think they'd put you by the gift table. I thought it would just be a separate table. I didn't expect them to go that far. His excuses fell flat, hitting the floor between us like broken glass. And you didn't stop them, I said. No anger, no accusation, just the truth. Aiden's shoulders slumped. I'm sorry. I held his gaze. Silence, I said softly, is still a choice. His face crumpled. Behind him, Amelia pressed shaking fingers to her lips, eyes wide with guilt and disgust, but not at me. At her father. At Nolan. At Kinsley. At the people she'd have to call family soon. She stepped forward. Estelle, she whispered, I swear I didn't know. I only asked for a separate table because I thought you'd want privacy. I never meant for you to be treated like that. I nodded gently. I believe you. But then Amelia turned, sharp as a blade, toward Thomas. Dad, a single word, deadly. Thomas shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat. Amelia, darling, this is all being blown out of proportion. It's not. Her voice shook with fury. You humiliated her. You humiliated your future daughter-in-law's sister-in-law, and you lied to me. He scowled. Everything I did was for the good of the party. No, Amelia snapped. Everything you did was for your ego. The crowd stiffened. Mentally, I gave her credit. I hadn't expected Amelia to have this kind of fire. But it didn't end there. A woman's voice cut in, sharp and cold, my mother's. Young lady, Kinsley said, watch your tone. This is hardly the place. Hardly the place? Amelia's voice rose. You asked them to hide your own daughter next to the gift table. How is that hardly the place to talk about it? My mother blinked, stunned that someone dared speak back to her. Nolan stepped in stiffly. We were protecting the image of the family. My laugh was humorless. There it is, the truth. He glared at me. You were already creating tension just by being here. We didn't want a scene. Well, Milo murmured dryly beside me, you got one. A few guests choked back laughs. Others pretended to check their phones. Aiden dragged a hand down his face, torn between his parents and the mess unraveling before him. Estelle, please, he whispered. Don't leave like this. We can fix it. I shook my head. Some things shouldn't be fixed. Some things should just break. Thomas, desperate, tried to salvage the only thing he cared about. We should discuss the contract, he said hurriedly. This is personal, not professional. Surely you understand that. I raised a hand to stop him, and he fell silent. No, I said. You made it personal when you decided I wasn't good enough to be seen at my own brother's engagement party. You made it personal when you judged me before even learning my name. He swallowed. We can resolve this. Thomas, I said calmly, your contract is gone. Whitmore Group can find another up-and-coming tech company. You don't get access to my software, and you don't get access to me. His face turned the color of raw dough. Even Bob Hartwell, still lingering nearby, let out a low whistle. My mother's hands shook. Estelle, you're blowing this out of proportion. You're being dramatic as always. There it was, the dagger they always used. I felt something inside me finally sever, the last thread keeping me tethered to what they thought I should be. I'm not being dramatic, I said softly. I'm being done. Nolan's mouth opened, closed. He didn't know how to respond. No one did. Only Amelia moved. She approached me, eyes glassy, voice trembling. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "If I had known, none of this would have happened. I promise you, this is not who I want to be associated with." I gave her a small, sincere smile. "I believe you, and I hope you have a beautiful marriage." She let out a shaky breath. Then I turned back to Aiden one last time. "I don't hate you," I said. "I'm just disappointed, deeply, that you didn't choose me, that you never have." He blinked rapidly, tears gathering. "Estelle, will you come to the wedding?" My husband and son waited quietly beside me. Milo's hand lightly brushed my back, steadying me, grounding me, reminding me who I was now. "I don't know, Aiden," I answered honestly. "Don't hope for too much." His face fell, and with that I turned away. The three of us, my real family, walked out of the glittering hall, past the murmurs and the stares and the gasps and the cameras subtly lifting behind wine glasses. We walked into the cool night air, free. No goodbyes, no apologies, no looking back. As we stepped into the parking lot, Milo intertwined his fingers with mine. "You did the right thing," he whispered. I squeezed his hand. "No one," I said, "gets to put a price on our dignity except us." Behind us, the hall buzzed with chaos, voices raised, blame shifting, truths unraveling. But ahead of us was silence, peace, something clean, something new. The next morning, I woke before sunrise. For once, it wasn't because of anxiety or a nightmare. It was something else entirely. Quiet, clean. Like my mind had finally stopped carrying a weight it had held for years without even realizing it. The clock on the nightstand read 6:02 a.m. Milo was still asleep beside me, one arm draped over my waist, his breathing soft and steady. I gently slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and padded downstairs. The house felt unusually still. Sunlight hadn't fully broken across the sky yet. A faint silver glow brushed the backyard through the kitchen window. I made myself a coffee and stood by the glass door, the steam warming my hands. For the first time in a long time, I felt peaceful. Not happy, not triumphant, just peaceful. My phone buzzed on the countertop. Eleanor Wright, Whitmore Group, COO. I answered immediately. She didn't even say hello. "Estelle, what on earth happened last night?" she asked, her voice laced with both urgency and disbelief. "Thomas has called me 5 times since dawn. He's panicking." I took a sip of coffee. "I'm sure he is." Panicking was probably the gentlest possible word for what Thomas must be experiencing. "Did something happen between you two?" she pressed. "He mentioned a personal misunderstanding." I gave her the clean version, one free of emotional shrapnel. "He insulted my family," I said, repeatedly. "He attempted to hide us from the event. The contract is canceled." Silence, then a slow, controlled exhale. "Estelle," Eleanor said, her tone shifting to one of sincere regret, "I'm so sorry he put you through that. But are you absolutely sure about canceling, professionally speaking?" "Yes," I replied simply. "Vector Forge will not pursue any partnership with Whitmore Group." "I respect that," she said finally. "And I don't blame you. We'll proceed accordingly." When we hung up, I set my phone down and closed my eyes. One chapter was ending. Another would begin, eventually. But I no longer felt tied to proving my worth to people who refused to see it. I was reviewing product roadmap notes in our office downtown when my phone buzzed again. "Aiden." A message appeared on the screen. "Can we meet, please?" I stared at the text for a long moment. Milo, passing by with a stack of medical journals, paused when he saw my face. "Everything okay?" I nodded. Not happily, just knowingly. Aiden wanted to talk. He should have wanted that years ago. But this was something. After several minutes of consideration, I typed back, "Okay, tomorrow, 4 p.m., the coffee shop on Hanover Street." When I walked into the quiet coffee shop, Aiden was already there, sitting at a corner table, 2 cups of coffee in front of him. His shoulders were hunched, fingers tapping anxiously against the steaming mug. He stood up the instant he saw me. "Estelle," he breathed, relief flooding his features. "Thanks for coming." I sat. "What did you want to talk about?" For a moment, he just stared down at his coffee, gathering the courage he'd never needed before, because he'd always lived comfortably in the shadow of our parents' approval. Finally, he spoke. How did you do it?" he asked quietly. "How did you live with being looked down on by Mom and Dad all those years?" The question hit harder than any accusation could have. Of all the things I expected him to say, that wasn't one of them. I took a breath. "I stopped," I said simply. "I stopped waiting for them to see me. I stopped letting their disappointment define me." He swallowed hard. His voice trembled. "I'm starting to understand now." His eyes lifted, meeting mine with a kind of raw honesty I hadn't seen since we were kids. Since the engagement party, he said shakily, Mom and Dad have been different, controlling, demanding. They want to manage the wedding, my work schedule, where Amelia and I will live. Everything. He let out a bitter laugh. I used to think they just wanted the best for me, but now I feel like I can't breathe. Sympathy tugged at something in me. I wasn't vindictive, just tired. You chose silence, I said gently, and now you're seeing the cost of that choice. I know, Aiden's voice cracked. I'm sorry, Estelle. I'm truly sorry I never defended you. I should have. I just wasn't brave enough. For the first time in years, I believed him. I don't blame you anymore, I said softly. He let out a shaky breath of relief. Then, almost timidly, he asked, So will you come to the wedding? I hesitated. I truly did. Then he reached into his jacket pocket and slid an envelope across the table. This is a new invitation, he said quietly. Amelia and I canceled the old wedding. We're having a smaller, private ceremony. Just people who matter. He looked up, eyes watery. No Thomas, no Whitmores, and no Mom and Dad. My breath caught. And we want you there, he added. You, Milo, and Brian, if you'll come. I stared at the envelope, emotion welling thick in my chest. After a long moment, I nodded once. I'll think about it. Aiden's relief was visible, wounded, hopeful, fragile. When we stepped outside, he hugged me, really hugged me, for the first time in years. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something new, something real. The drive back to Ocean View Resort felt surreal. The same route, the same ocean breeze, the same sound of waves, but everything else felt different. I kept waiting to feel dread, to feel suspicion, to brace myself for another ambush. But when we arrived, Aiden was standing at the entrance. No fancy setup, no massive crowd. Just him, smiling wide and nervous. He hugged me the moment we stepped out of the car. I'm glad you're here, he said softly. Inside the hall, our seating was unmistakable. Estelle Barrington's family, written in elegant silver calligraphy at a central table. A seat of honor, a seat of acknowledgement, a seat I hadn't expected to ever see again. The ceremony was simple and genuine. No theatrics, no elite guest lists, no status games. Just love, real love. I watched as Aiden and Amelia exchanged vows, hands trembling, eyes bright. Milo squeezed my hand. Brian swung his feet happily and whispered, Mom, everyone's being nice this time. I kissed the top of his head. Yes, sweetheart, I murmured. They are. There were moments I never thought I'd witness. Aiden laughing with Milo, Amelia chatting warmly with me about her childhood, Brian playing with other kids while the adults drank champagne. These were the kinds of moments families were supposed to have. Peaceful, honest, real. As the newlyweds swayed together during their first dance, I stood in the corner of the room, watching quietly. Not sad, not angry, just grateful. Because healing doesn't happen in grand gestures. It happens in the small, fragile steps, like a name card on a table, written with intention. For the first time in years, I felt something loosen in my chest. Not reconciliation, not amnesia, but the beginning of something new. When I reached the end of this long journey, I turned to you, to the listeners, the viewers, the people following my story. Was I wrong for standing up for myself at my brother's engagement party? For refusing to be hidden? For choosing dignity over silence? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if you've stayed with me until this final moment, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. Your support is what keeps us going.